let's have a look at this fried egg. So what can we say about this? How can you, well, what's nice about this, if I get my cursor, this is very simple. We're just looking at a series of ellipses, and an ellipse is a squashed circle. So we've got the ellipse that forms the outline of the pan. We've got an ellipse that forms the outline of the egg white, and we've got an ellipse that forms the egg yolk. And everything's quite straightforward. We've got a nice shadow under here and a shadow under here. Now, this pan is black, but it's not just black. Obviously, there's black in here, but we've got some lovely grays here. And yeah, let me show you how to do that. All right, grab your sketchbooks and let's have a bash. So this week, I know I've been banging on about encouraging you to use pen, but I don't want to really have a black pen line around that egg yolk. So I'm going to stick to pencil. I'm just going to grab a pencil and let's just, I haven't had a warm up, which is a little bit naughty, but let's just start to flesh in those ellipses I was talking about. So I'm feeling a little bit slapdash today, so this could go anywhere. So I'm just sketching in a very relaxed manner. So I'm just starting by feeling my way around this pan. Now that's that big ellipse there, and that's the pan. I mean, I'm kind of drawing free form really. That handle, I'll admit I did that out of my head without looking at that picture very well. And you know, I think that's all right. I mean, I don't think you do have to be well, we said before, you don't have to be a slave to your reference. But if you just want to draw for the joy of drawing, I think you can do that. I think you're allowed. So I veered a little bit away from what was there. I'm just correcting that now. So I'm actually looking at this and just drawing what I see. And I know that is the artist's mantra, isn't it? It's draw what you see, not what you think you see. See, I drew that first line in there. I drew what I thought a panhandle looked like, which was a bit naughty. But now I've kind of corrected that a bit, and I'm drawing what I'm looking at. So coming down there, I'm going to include these little spouts. Let's just get that in. And there's one at the other side. And then we're coming round here like this. That might be a little bit shallow, so maybe I'll compensate for that and just bring that down a bit like so. And as you can see, I'm just, now you see, that's not right. That looks like the underside of that. I'm not happy with that. And at no time should you think that it's too late to change anything. You can just modify as you go. I went down there trying to make that a little bit more of an overhead look, and I think that was a mistake because it threw it off. It kind of unbalanced it. I think that should come around there like that, and then kind of follow it somewhere between the two. That's better. Happy with that. There's a very, very dark shadow down here. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I'm not bothered about that. Right, let's look at these ellipses here. The ellipse of the pan surrounds the ellipse of the egg, but look, the bottom of that egg comes right down to that pan edge. So just to start to try and, that fried egg, the white of that fried egg kind of comes around like so, but it comes right down to that front edge of that pan, doesn't it? So I'm just tidying up here. I'm rubbing out lines that might confuse me, like that. So that's my fried egg ellipse, and I'm kind of differentiating that a little bit by making it a little bit raggy edged so that I know what I'm doing. And then we've got the ellipse of the egg yolk in there, which is just, you can kind of put that anywhere, I think. And I think that's enough for me to start. I think we can make a go with that. This pan has a bit of a thickness to it, which we could try and get in. I'm not going to get hung up about it because, like I say, this is, I wouldn't say slapdash, but I want to do this quick, and I want to do this with, I was going to say overconfidence. Is that the wrong? That's not right, is it? Overconfidence. Just notice I've rubbed that line out, but of course, looking at it, that line is in. That line is definitely in. There's also a thickness to this handle, which is nice to get in, because we do like our paintings to have form and depth, because after all, we're trying to recreate the illusion of 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional page. That's what drawing and painting is all about. Let's not forget. We are creating an illusion. It's magic. So, yeah. I might come back when I've sloshed some colour on and pick that out, this thickness, this pan thickness later on. But anyway, I'm kind of fiddling now and I want to get stuck into some colour. So I'm going to put my pencil down and pick up my paintbrush. You know, all these little lines and all these little bits of rubbing out, these mistakes, well, they're not mistakes, they're corrections. I don't call them mistakes. They all tell a story. They all tell me where I've been and what I've been doing over the past 10 minutes. So let's get some paint going. Now, this black, I could go straight in here. I've got a Payne's grey and I could use a very thick mixture of Payne's grey to make a big solid black, but I don't really want to do that because it'd be a bit flat and a bit uninteresting. So what I'm going to propose we do, well, having activated my paints with a bit of spray, what I propose we do, we mix 2 complementary colours, very, very concentrated complementary colours, because we know complementary colours cancel each other out and make a grey. So if we choose 2 very dark complementary colours, that'll make a very dark grey. With a little bit of glazing, we can make that black. So, with the old paper towel, I am going to take my very dark green, which is this kind of viridian, which is quite a hard to use in its natural form green, and I'm going to mix it with this alizarin crimson. So these are 2 quite dark colours, and I'm going to try and make a good strong mix of that and see if I can make a grey. But it won't be a kind of flat grey, will it? It'll be a grey of green and red together. So if I allow that green and red to mix on the paper, it's going to be interesting because it's going to shift between red and green, and it's going to be an interesting grey. Now, as I say, I want to make this quite a concentrated mix, so I'm not going to get lots of water in here. I'm just mixing this together with relatively little water. So that's what I've got there. Look, that's a lovely dark rich colour. It's that colour. Now look, that's got green and red. That's green and red mixed together. It's quite hard to see here, but there I can see green and I can see red in there. But the overall effect is grey. As it dries, you can see it's got a little bit of a red hue. So you know what? Let's go in with a bit more green. Take it away from that red and bring it back to a neutral. So having added a bit more green. That's my second color. Now look at that. Look how that shifted that gray from there to there. Like, since by no means that's not green, like that's not red. It's kind of, they're cancelling each other out and doing something rather nice. So that, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that in terms of a kind of cast iron pan color. So I'm going to get that in. Darkest points first, because we may have to glaze over this a second time to build up the value. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to whack that in there. That kind of really dark bit round the back. Let's get that in. And we are defining the edge of the egg white by painting negatively around there. It gets a little lighter down here, look. So I'm going to rinse that brush out and just paint it with a slightly drier brush. Now, I'm really going to crank the speed up here because I want this to be lively. So try and keep up. Let's paint quickly. So that has got that in there. I'm going to go straight in here, and I'm kind of adding little bits. Look, I've gone into my red there because I kind of want a bit of vibrancy. I want it to change color. I don't want this to be a flat, boring gray. So I'm going to make it a gray that bounces around with between red and green. So that's coming down there like that. That's kind of nice already. I'm happy with that. That's describing the inside of this pan. Now, the handle itself is a little, actually, while we're on the shadow, while we're on the deep shadow, let's just do the edge of this pan. Because he's nice and dark as well, can you see? Keeping this mixture nice and gloopy. It's like a mixture, it's like cream. There are lots of consistencies of water paint. You can go from a very thin wash, which is like tea, and you can go get it thicker so that it's like got a coffee, then it gets even thicker still, which is almost like cream. And that's a nice way to describe the consistency, because the consistency is often very, very important. Okay, so that's in there like that. I'm happy with that. I suppose we need to make a slightly wetter wash. So I've added a bit of water, and I'm just coming down and I'm doing this thickness. Remember I was talking about this thickness that this pan has? Can't really ignore it. So I'm putting it in like that, but I'm doing it quickly and I'm doing it with confidence. And that paler grey also carries on at the handle, doesn't it? Look how grey that paler that handle is. So let's get him in. Nice. Okay. So there's all kinds of things going on in here. I want to make this a little bit lighter. I just wet my brush and lift a bit of paint out like that, just to add a little bit of interest. A little blob of colour there that I'm just going to soak out and just do something like that. Okay, that's enough for the time being. Let's have a look at this egg white. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but I'd say this egg white's got a slight blue haze to it. So I'm going to capitalize on that, because the blue will be a nice contrast to this mixture of green and red that I've got here. And also the blue is a complementary color to this egg yolk. So it's going to make these ping, it's going to make these vibrate. So it's a very, very pale gray blue. So I'm just going to, I've got green there. So I want to try and clean that up a bit. I've got some old blue in here. So I'm just going to pull a bit out and see what it looks like. See that? You see that? It's a really watery blue. It's not a million miles away from this. So I think I'm going to use that. I'm going to put in, obviously, this is a very oily egg. There's a lot of bright highlights on here. So I am not painting where the highlights are. I'm only painting the shadow. And it's a very interesting texture as well. So let's try and achieve that with this watery blue wash. Let's just try and make some marks. And that might be a little bit heavy-handed. So if it is, I can always dab it off, maybe add a bit more water. And let's just try and imitate some of these shapes that you can see, just the shadow shapes. Like that. You see, if it's a bit heavy-handed, dab it off with a bit of tissue. And don't forget, it'll always dry a lot lighter. So I'm painting these shapes in between the highlights here. I'm going to come around there and give that egg yolk a bit of form. But I'm leaving the shiny whites of the white of this egg alone, because I want that to be pure white, dry paper. So I've defined the edge of that egg yolk. But I'm painting in all the shadowy bits with this very pale blue-grey wash. There. Okay, voila. That'll do, I'm happy with that. Maybe some of them join up a bit more. A few little dots here and there. Try and give them a little bit of texture. So I'm just spotting in little dots here and there just to vary the value and make it just a little bit more interesting. But that's okay, I'm happy with that. Right, let's tackle this yolk. What I don't want to, and again, this has got a very shiny highlight on it, it's incredibly glossy, so you've got pure white in the center there. Now around here, this isn't just one yellow, this is different yellows. You've got a yellow there, and down here it gets much more orange. So I'm going to choose my lovely rich chromium yellow, not the lemon yellow, the warmer one, the thicker one. And I'm going to get that down, and I'm just going to whack in the colour like that. I'm working quickly, I'm leaving big old highlight on it. I'm trying to keep it elliptical. Now, while this is wet, I'm going to come in with some red. And you see the red's down here, away from the light. So I'm just dotting that in there, you see. And that little shift of colour really makes a difference. I think I can go even more red than that. I've gone a bit blobby there, so I'll just suck that up with my thirsty brush. There. Ooh, that's a bit red, but let's try it. Still wet, so when I drop it in, it's going to blend nicely. But look at that, that little bit of red has made a big difference. This is not just flat yellow. I'm going to leave that there. That's going to have a little bit of a soak through. Over time, over the next few seconds, that's going to blend. Just looking at this, and maybe my highlight's a bit haywire here. I want to keep it, I'm going to lose that highlight and just have it there so it's hitting the top. Just encourage that to mingle. Right, I'm going to come back and have another crack at this pan. You remember earlier I said we probably won't be able to get as deep dark as we possibly should do with the first wash. We need to glaze over it with a second wash. Let me try that. Let's go back, dry that brush up because I don't want it to get too wet. Let's go back to our original grey that we made. Boost it up with a bit more. And I'm going to warm it up as well. So I'm going to go a little bit redder this time. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to try and get that back in there dark. And can you see this second glaze is making this much, much darker? You see how that's taking it right down? I don't want to do it anywhere, everywhere. I don't want to fill the whole of the base of the pan up. Just going to try and get a little bit of variety of depth going. And also it defines the edge a bit more as well. So glazing over, just making it darker. So and I want to soften these edges. So I'm cleaning that brush off. I'm giving it a dab. And then bringing that wet brush up to that hard edge, and it'll soften that hard edge. Oops. Cushy. Nice. Now, this is floating in space, this pan. And we don't really want that. We want to sit it on a surface. I'm just gonna tickle up this thickness of this handle here. So in order to sit it on a surface, it needs to have a shadow, doesn't it? This is casting this lovely soft edge shadow around the base there, and also underneath the handle. So let's try and get that. And it's on a wooden surface as well. So maybe we want to try and suggest that. So let's take our, do you know what? I'm just going to mix up what I've got here, and I'm going to try and turn it into a brown. So I've got this, my leftover pan grey and a bit of that blue that I used for the egg white. And it is, what is it? It's this colour. It's kind of a nondescript. Well, it's a nondescript grey. Let's warm it up. Let's give it some red and let's see where we can take it. That was a strong red and that's made it very brown. I don't want it that brown, so I'm going to throw some green into it. That is a brown is a dark orange. So in order to neutralize a dark orange, you need to put its complementary color into it. Now, URT improvers will know that the complementary color to an orange is a blue. So let's throw some blue in and let's see where it takes it. Now we're getting there. Look, that's taken it down to a much more interesting brown. I like that. So we can use that as our shadow. Now I've made a wash here, so it's too gloopy to try and do it thickly. So I'm going to go in and grab a little bit of my Payne's grey there. Look, that's a really nice dark grey. So I'm going to put that right in the specular highlight, the what they call the occlusional shadow, where there's no light at all. But I'm going to use this brown for this to get this sitting on a surface. So there, look. And this is going to help me define the edge of this pan as well. So with this brown, I'm just going to come in there like that. Let's quite use quite a bit of it. And this is a soft edge shadow, so we're going to soften this edge. So I'm going to get that down there like that. I'm going to wash my brush, dry it off, and paint outside that edge, and then come up to it like that. And that is going to let that ooze out into this wet zone and create my lovely soft edge shadow. If I want to go dark, like I said, I'm going to just go inside into here with my, use a bit of that, with a little bit of that Payne's grey. And I'm just going to go in here to make it where the really dark bits is. Because this is already wet, that's going to bleed out and not leave me any hard edges, because I don't want hard edges under here. It's all very soft underneath here. but it's given me that kind of warm wood / organic feel to it. That little bit of warmth, that brown in there. And let's try and do the same with the handle. So I'm going to pick up this brown again. It'd be nice if I can achieve, you see the hole in the shadow there from the hole in the handle. Let's try and get that. So again, just kind of imitating that shape, falling on the ground like that. Again, that's a hard edge, don't want that. Wash the brush, dry it off, paint outside it like this, and then just come up to that edge. And then the paint will want to run into the wet paper. And it'll just soften that edge nicely. While it's wet, I'm just going to go in with that slightly darker mix and just spot it in there because, you know, that shadow is dark. There. And you know what, I was just looking around this fried egg, there's a little bit, it's going slightly brown and crispy around the edges. I don't know if you can see that. But we can just pop it in with a little bit of this shadow colour. So there. I'm just going to come in here. There's a kind of granular texture to this cast iron skillet, or whatever it is. I can never resist just coming in with a little pencil and adding a bit more detail, because I didn't really define this edge here. But it's quite nice to do. Just come around and blacken that edge. And I'm just putting a few dots in there to try and tell the viewer that this isn't a nice, soft, shiny metal. It's actually got a surface texture. My proportions aren't bang on. In fact, they're a little bit haywire. But I don't mind that. Just bringing that around there like that. But, you know, at this stage, the paint is finished. I'm just looking at what's going on in there, and I'm just trying to communicate any more information that I can. Something funny going on there, but it's watercolor. That's what happens, and it's nice. There's a bit of a black edge around here as well. You see the way the light hits the top, and then as it rolls round, it's kind of leaving a shadow. We can get that in. I can add that. That comes round into there like that, and that's nice. And these little things, now we're actually observing what's going on, and we're communicating that, so it's all good. We're not just, I know I see a lot of people when they've done a painting and they think, oh, I'm not quite happy with it, they'll just dive in and they'll just put an outline around everything with a pen or a pencil. And that really doesn't do them any favors at all. There's no point in doing something that isn't actually there. It's just, over egging it, but you don't need to do that. You need to, you're really drawing what you can see. See down this far side of this handle here, there actually is, albeit soft enough to focus, a dark line down there. So let's get him in. This pencil that I'm using is a water-soluble pencil, and I like these because if you get them wet, they give you a lovely thick, dark line. Well, a dark line as opposed to a pencil line. If I carried on drawing with my pencil, it'd just be grey. But when I draw with this water-soluble pencil, it kind of goes blacker. So they're nice. There's all kinds of different brands. It's just useful to tickle up your paintings with at the end. So you can put in a few little specks, enhancing the texture. Oh, look, I missed that. Look, that little change of plane there where that spout comes down there. Didn't really capture that, so we could almost cheat that with a little bit of cross hatching. You know, if I went down there, just to make that a little bit darker, with that few little lines like that, and that suggests that little dip in there, doesn't it? Can't really see it over there, although I'm sure it probably is there. So what do we got? There. It's scrappy, it's a little bit free form, but I've enjoyed that. It's been liberating. I've not been precious about it. I've been rather, would I say slapdash? Could you say slapdash? I probably was a bit slapdash, but there's something nice and freeing about being slapdash. When you're not precious about something, it just makes it a bit more fun. Well, now, if I were to take you over the half-hour class length, I'd say, all right, you know what, that egg looked to me a bit anemic. I think we can pump it up. So I'm going to come back into my orange here. I'm fiddling. Yes, I'm fiddling. But that's what sketchbooks are for. And I'm wondering if I can make this egg a little bit more free range. Right, so I've got my orange. And I'm just going to try and develop that. You see down here, it looks a bit too anemic. It's not as rich and golden as that. This is now dry. So I can come in here and know that, see that already, that little glaze of orange, it's just cheered that egg up. And I almost don't need to soften that edge, although I will, just warm it up a bit. Isn't that better? Just that little hit of orange. Because like I say, this is not just a one colour egg, it's build all your things that I like. The pan's not just grey, there's blue, there's greens and reds in there. I will just soften that edge with a damp brush. But that's just made that egg a little bit healthier. Right, I'm going to leave it at that. I can see flaws in there. I know I can see that maybe my egg yolk might have benefited from being a little bit rounder, but you know what? You get the picture. It's certainly a fried egg. Right. There we go. I'm going to say thank you all for being here this morning. It's been nice to see so many of you here. And
thank you very much.
Thank you. Most enjoyable.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great week. I'll be here next Tuesday. I'll see you there.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.